Me. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Katie. Kana, can you come up to my face? Can you see me? Oh, there we go. Hi. Hello, everybody. I need to see my face too, or else I don't know what's happening. But I'm so excited to be with you all today. Thank you so much for joining me for French macaroons. This is absolutely one of my favorite topics to teach. I love French macaroons. They're so delicate, they're so lovely, and they're so great for any season, particularly Halloween. And today we're going to make some really fun decorations. We'll do some mummies, we'll do some pumpkins. We can really have fun. And as Kana said, this is recorded. So if you brought your ingredients along with you, feel free to bake along. I will move pretty quickly. So, feel free to throw it up in the chat if you have any questions along the way. But you can also just play this back later and make these at your leisure, even closer to Halloween, which would be great. But I'm very excited to get started. I'll show you what I'm working with. And again, feel free to be active in the chat, ask questions along the way. Definitely let me know if anyone is a beginner at making macarons, if you've never made them before, or if you are more of an experienced baker, that would be great to know as well. But Kana, if you can, come on down. And I'm going to show you guys what ingredients I'm starting with here so you know what we're working with. And Kana is managing the chat and the cameras today. So thank you, Kana, for doing that. But here you can see I've got some pretty basic ingredients. Macarons are they're actually very simple, even though they are a bit finicky to make. And I know some people maybe are intimidated by making macarons. It's something that might scare you a little bit. But I'm here to tell you that today we're doing this the most straightforward, the easiest way. And so hopefully, fingers crossed, we're not going to have any problems. But the ingredients are simple. You've got mainly 4 ingredients here. I've got confectioner's sugar, almond flour. This is like a blanched almond flour, and you can see how fine this is. There's no bits of skin in there. You don't want any of those little brown bits running around. You want it super fine. I've got egg whites, and these are at room temperature, which I find is the best. They whip up more quickly, they have better volume, and also granulated sugar. And that is the base of our macaron shells. I'm going to also add food coloring. We'll talk about spices and flavorings that you can add and things like that. Cynthia, I see you've made them with various results. That's great. But we should have some fun today. So the other equipment that you will need, I'm working with a stand mixer with a whisk attachment. You could also use a hand mixer for this. That would be fine as well. I've got baking sheets lined with parchment paper. I've got a rubber spatula, super important. We'll talk about how gentle folding is key when it comes to making macarons. And I do recommend when you're making macarons to have a kitchen scale on hand. It does help a lot. One of the biggest issues that can happen when you're making French macarons is that the ingredient weights might be off just a little bit, and it's going to throw off your entire recipe. So it is very helpful to have a kitchen scale so you can weigh your items in grams or ounces or anything that you like. And yes, as Kana mentioned, there is a recipe handout, so you have all of your ingredients listed out for you. And definitely feel free to print that out and save it. And you can make these macarons for any season, any color, any flavor that you like once you have this base recipe down, which is super helpful. So let's get started. Who's excited? Are you guys excited? Am I like more excited than everyone? I think so. But we're going to start with our stand mixer. So here we go here. Let me move this over so you can see it. So I'm going to go ahead and get my egg whites in. And actually a key thing when you're working with a mixer or a hand mixer, when you're making macarons, before I start, I like to just swipe the bowl with a little bit of lemon juice. So I take a paper towel, a little bit of bottled lemon juice. You can even use vinegar. Any sort of acid will do. And I just swipe the bowl and I swipe the whisk as well, just to make sure if there's any fat from anything that you baked previously, it's going to kind of kill off that fat. And this way you aren't going to have any risk of your egg whites not whipping up properly. So I did that earlier. So I'm going to go ahead and get my egg whites in. And if at any point while I'm whisking, you can't hear me, which is probably going to be the case, I will pause. I'll try not to talk while I'm whipping, but sometimes I can't help myself. But we are going to whip these just until frothy before I add my sugar. Let me move this away from me a little bit. And again, I've got my granulated sugar here. It's about a half cup of granulated sugar. And Cynthia, my thoughts on having egg whites rest, and tell me if you can't hear me at all while I'm answering your question. You can absolutely do that. And when I worked in restaurants for a long time, we used to make soups and macarons and things like that. We would rest and age our egg whites for up to a month, sometimes longer. And chefs swear that, that's a great way to kind of increase the quality of your egg whites and just help them with a more nice way. You can also just use fresh eggs. I'm using fresh eggs today. I didn't let them age at all. So again, today we're doing like the most fuss-free macaron method. So no need to age your egg whites. And yes, I do like them to be at room temperature before I start. I find that that's helpful. It isn't a deal breaker if they're not at room temperature, but I do find that it is helpful. So if you can see my bowl here, you'll see that my egg whites are frothy. They've kind of changed from something that's, very translucent to something that just looks like a frothy coffee. They've just got a little bit of lightness. And what that's doing is it's just giving our sugar a little bit of like a pillow to land on. It isn't going to instantly weigh down our egg whites as if I added it, straight from the beginning. So now a little bit of that frothiness happening. What I'm going to do is just increase my speed to medium. And you're going to see that I'm going to slowly rain down my sugar on the side of the bowl. I'll try to do this on the side that you can see. You want to make sure you're adding your sugar nice and gently, just in a steady stream. Just right down the side.
Can you hear me, Katie?
Ooh. I can't hear you. Did you say something?
So we have a few questions.
Oh, yes.
Cynthia is asking your thoughts on having egg whites rest in the fridge for several days.
Sorry, say it one more time.
Your thoughts on having egg whites rest in fridge for several days.
Oh, yes. Did you guys hear that while I was whipping? You might have, you might not.
I think they did. I was able to hear you.
Oh, no, that's fine. And the only one I think I missed is the copper bowl. That's very fancy. You can absolutely use a copper bowl, but there's no, if you're that amazing and you have copper bowls at home, definitely feel free to use them. You can even whip your whites by hand if you're using a copper bowl. But no, I definitely, a standard stand mixer is great, but I love that you just have copper bowls hanging around at home. I think that's amazing. Oh, can you explain what's happening? So Micah, we're making French macaroons. Right now we're whipping the meringue for our macaroons. We've got egg whites, we've got sugar, and this is recorded, so feel free, later you can go back and kind of check at the beginning, but you haven't missed much. We're just starting. Yeah, do we sift the sugar and the almond flour together? You will, and we're gonna get to that in about a minute, absolutely. But so right now, all we're doing is whipping. We've got our egg whites in, we've got our sugar in. I've got it going on like a medium to medium high speed. I don't want to be here forever. But you don't want to go super high, and you don't want it to take forever to do. So somewhere about around a medium to medium, high speed. It's great. And you're going to see our meringue change from something that was sort of loose to something very glossy and marshmallowy. And that's going to give us the perfect base for our macaroni shell. So if I was adding color, which of course for Halloween, you want to add color, right? Color is kind of the name of the game. I would do it at the point where my egg whites are not quite ready. You don't want to wait until the very end and try to add your color, because at that point, you're going to end up over whipping your meringue. So at a certain point, I'm going to kind of pull this out and show you the heat. And if anybody wants to vote in the chat, I was thinking that I would do sort of like a Halloween swirl. But if anybody wants a specific color, feel free to throw it out. We'll see if like everybody wants a specific color. I'll do that as well. That's fine. All right, so let's talk about peaks, and let's talk about how we know when your meringue is ready. Now, if I pull this out now, I'll show you where I'm at. This is a very soft peak. You can see that it's not really holding any sort of shape. If I lift this up and pull it out, it just kind of flops over, right? So this is what we call a soft peak when we talk about meringue. Now we're looking for a medium peak, right? So what we're looking for with medium is it's just going to hook over just slightly. It's going to have some stability to it. It's going to hold that lightness, that marshmallowy texture, but it also isn't going to stand straight out. When we get to the point where it's like a mohawk, you're at very stiff peaks, and that's a little further than we want today. That one more minute. And yes, Morgan. So yeah, actually before I started whipping, I just swiped my bowl with a little bit of lemon. Let's check this out while I answer those questions. A little bit of lemon, just that acidity is going to kill any fat that's in your bowl. Let's say I made a batch of cookies before this, and any little bit of fat is going to keep your egg whites from whipping properly. So just on a paper towel, just swipe it really fast. And in this meringue is granulated sugar. In this bowl, we're going to talk about our confectioner sugar in a minute. And yes, you can definitely use your egg whites from a carton. That should work fine. I've done that before, and I haven't had any issues. So yes, definitely. 20 more seconds, and we'll be good. And you'll notice I'm taking this all the way because I'm not coloring this meringue at this point. And you'll see why. We're going to do like a fun Halloween swirl. So I'm not going to color my meringue. But if I was, before I got to this point, I would want to do that. You can see my meringue, it's got a nice peak to it. It's holding up nicely. Probably see it a little better over here. But it's not sticking straight up. It's not super stiff. It's really glossy and marshmallowy and lovely. And just like you could eat it straight out of the bowl. That's what we want. Okay, set that aside. Now, the two things that we haven't added yet are our almond flour that we talked about, super fine blanched almond flour, no bits of skin running around, just super white, and confectioner sugar. What I like to do actually before I even use these, before I sift them, is I like to just give them a quick pulse in the food processor. And I find that that just mellows them out a little bit. Any little bits of almond that maybe are on the coarser side that would kind of end up in your finished shells, it just gets rid of those. So I do like to do that. That's definitely an optional step. You don't have to grind them in your food processor, but just like a quick pulse a couple of times, I find makes a big difference. And then of course I am sifting them as well. And this is kind of just bringing them together, combining them in my bowl, and any little unmixed lumps of sugar or anything like that, I'm going to just kind of even those out. Sometimes I even just, if there's like a few, like nothing, get those out of the way. All right. So easiest way of making macarons. So you may see recipes where there's a macaronage step where you are kind of adding some egg whites to your almond flour, make sure you're forming a paste, then you're folding in egg whites. We're not doing that today. This is the easiest method. I use this method all the time. When I owned a bakery, I used this method. I just find it's very simple and effective. So French meringue, this is our French meringue. I'm adding about half of my mixture. You could just sort of eyeball it. And the key here when you're making macarons is gentle folding. So you can see I'm taking my spatula, I'm going down to the center of my bowl, and I'm just lifting up and turning my bowl as I go. That's the key here. With macarons, we whipped all of that air into our meringue. We don't want to deflate it. That's not our goal. We just want to kind of ease it into the mixture. It still should have some lift to it. And once everything is sort of incorporated, it doesn't have to be super smooth. You can kind of see here where I'm at. This is kind of just like a messy mixture. Go ahead and add the rest. I'll try to bring this closer so you can see it as well. Let's see if I could do that. Let's see what I can do here. Move this mixer. Okay. So you can see as I'm going, I'm just lifting and turning. That's all I'm doing. It's kind of like when you rub your belly and pat your head at the same time. But once you can do it, it gets just really easy. But you can see the one thing I'm not doing is going in and stirring, right? You never want to stir your macaron batter. You just want to turn and lift and fold. And this is like a deceptively good workout after a while. It's like, oh, I'm working it. And what we're going to do today with this, I sort of mentioned we're going to swirl it. We're actually going to paint our piping bag with a little bit of food coloring just to do like a nice swirl and some fun Halloween colors. It may work out really well. It may be weird. We'll find out. You can see how this batter's changing. This takes a minute. Don't rush the process. This is the most important part. And if you ever find that as you go, you see how on my spatula, I've got like some egg white forming here that isn't properly mixed in, just go ahead and like get it in a little bit, because that could actually form cracks in your macarons as they bake. If any little unmixed bits of meringue are sort of sitting on your spatula and end up in that final mixture, that's going to affect your batch. All right, so let's check out what we are. So we're looking for a consistency that's lava-like. So let's see where we are. You see this? It's thick. What do you think? Would you say that's lava-like? Anybody know? Let's see if anybody knows when I should stop folding. Let's check out this. You guys see this? Let's give this a lift and let it kind of fall off our spatula. Something about figure eight. You can figure eight it. You don't have to. Again, we're doing like this, the most simple method today. All we're doing is folding. We're not like worrying about how we're folding. We're not, you know, and the figure eight, when you lift this up and you're looking for like, does it make a figure eight? You can do that. You could see mine is sort of doing that a little bit. If you're new to making macarons, what you really want to do is sort of err on the side of underfolding. So at this point, if you look at my batter, I could do that figure eight business. I could also just kind of like let it fall off my spatula and see, you know, how loose is it? How quickly is it falling? I would say this is almost like a thick toothpaste consistency. And that's okay. I could take it a bit further if I wanted to. But this is the point. When you see that it's kind of falling back into itself, it isn't holding any sort of a line. It's oozing back into itself here. You can do your figure eight. You guys like the figure eight? And see, does it keep flowing off my spatula without breaking at any point? Am I getting a smooth flow? Is it ribbon-like? This is the part that's hard to tell exactly. And the more you do this, the more you'll sort of know what to look for. But you can see how it's just flowing off my spatula. That's what we want. That's what we're looking for. But erring on the side of underfolding is always a good idea when you're new to making macarons, because if you overfold, if I kept going and this got really loose, what would happen is once they go on the baking sheet, they just spread and flatten. If I underfold, they sort of remain like hamburger-like. They're a little thicker, but they'll be okay. So erring on the side of underfolding is always a good idea. So to prepare my piping bag, so I've got a plastic piping bag. You can absolutely use fabric also. But the first thing I'm going to do is fold down the top of my bag. I'm going to make this sort of cup at the top. And that's to keep the edge of my bag clean. So this way, when I fill it up and I go to pipe, it's not getting on my hands. That's sort of step number one. Step number two, I'm going to just snip it. I'm using a tip, a medium round tip. So I'm going to look at my tip and just give it a snip. I could always come back and snip a little more if I have to. You want it to just clear the top of the tip. That's all we're looking for. If it's too far down, it's going to pop out. So just to clear the top. And then what I want to do, because this is a loose batter, just give it a twist and just step it right in. And that's going to stop my batter from kind of flowing out before I'm ready. If it's too thick, what do? You keep folding. If your batter is too thick, you mean? The more you fold, the looser your batter will become. So this is a neat trick. So I've got some of this Satin Ice food coloring. I'm just taking a paintbrush and I'm just going to make some lines in my bag, just for like a swirl of color, because I thought that'd be fun today. This might work out perfectly. This might not translate, but I just thought it would be fun. I've got some black as well, and I've got some purple. All I'm doing is painting lines inside my bag. Just making lines. And how do you flavor the batter? So macaron batter can be flavored in a myriad of ways. And you will find that depending on the bakery that you're at and where you're buying your macarons, it could be that the shells are flavored and it could be that just the filling is flavored. That's absolutely the case sometimes, that they don't flavor the shells. But you can use any sort of dry flavorings that you like spices, lemon zest, orange zest, things like that. Fruit powders, cocoa powder. When you get into liquids like extracts and things like that, that's when you sort of have to be careful not to accidentally kind of loosen up your batter unintentionally. And that will affect your batter, you know, after it bakes. So I do like to stick with dry flavorings when I can. I didn't add much color, so no guarantees on how this is going to swirl, but at least you'll get the idea. All right, so once my bag is full, and you'll see I used a cup, because that's just helpful. I'm going to pop this out. And you'll see, because we stuffed our tip, nothing's coming out the other side, which is very helpful. And at this point, you close up your cup. Just pinch it closed and give it a twist. And this is a lot of batter. So if you are new to piping, if you're not as comfortable with piping, you can absolutely do what I'm going to do, which is I'm going to pinch the bag about halfway down, just to give myself a little bit more control. So if you're a righty, your left hand should be at the back of the bag holding it closed, and your right hand is going to pinch halfway down the bag. What colors did you use? I used orange, purple, and black. I've got a swirl going. So I thought that'd be cute. We'll see how it comes out. How do you know when the meringue is done? Again, we're looking for medium peaks. So you're looking for it to kind of hook over slightly, but still have some stability to it. So just like this. So depending on your comfort level, I'm just going to go ahead and pipe rounds. And you'll see the color will come out eventually. It might take a minute. But if you are more comfortable, you can print out a template. Watch, this color's going to take like forever to come out. It's okay. We're going to make some mummies too, so this will be perfect. You can print out a template. You can draw circles. You could trace a quarter and then turn your parchment over. All right, we're starting to get a little bit of color. Here's our swirl action coming. You can see my color coming out. See that swirl starting to happen? It's kind of fun. I like it. It's fun. It's different. What better way to have fun than to experiment in the middle of a live class? You know what I mean? Here's the little runny. Your meringue is runny or your batter is runny? I like this swirl. This is fun. And this is like an easy way to color your bag. You could just paint lines of food coloring down the side of your bag and you get these really fun swirls. You could do this with red and white for Christmas. You can make peppermint meringues, peppermint macarons, excuse me. And you'll notice when I'm piping. So one thing that I'm not doing when I'm piping is pushing and swirling. I'm not doing that. I'm holding it in one spot. Your meringue, if it's running, keep whipping. Don't add your other stuff. Keep whipping. But all I'm doing is, I'm going to bring you close over here so you can see. I'm holding my bag straight up against, and I'm just pushing, 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 releasing the pressure, and just swirling off, just so it doesn't form a big Hershey kiss at the end. Swirling off, but I'm not moving. Is this closer, Joanne? Want me to go closer? Can you see? I'm holding. Push, 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 release your pressure. And just scoot off to the side. Get closer over here. Push, 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 push. Release the pressure. Scoot off to the side. You guys see that? And you'll see how mine are spreading a little bit. So don't go too big. They do tend to spread a little if your batter is at a nice consistency. Now you may find some recipes recommend letting these sort of set at room temperature and developing a skin. You can do that. And because this recipe makes 2 baking sheets, you can even bake one right away and then experiment with letting one set. What happens is as they sit, right now, if I were to touch this, this would be wet to the touch. But if I let it kind of rest at room temperature for about 30 minutes or so, you're going to touch it and it's going to have a skin. You're not going to be able to feel the moisture of the macaron anymore. And some people say that that helps create, a nice smooth shell without cracks, things like that. I don't do it. I definitely don't do it when I'm in a rush, but you can do it. You can try to do it and see if it makes a difference for you, because you never know what little tricks you might prefer. You can also bang your macarons against the table. You can pop air bubbles with a toothpick. There are all sorts of things. Again, today we're very fuss-free. Morgan, keep whipping. Keep whipping, girl. You just keep on whipping till you've got peaks. But you do want to make sure that I don't even remember what I was saying, but whatever I was saying makes sense. All right. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to bake these at 325. If your oven is not preheated to 325, wait about 10 to 15 minutes before you get these in. You want them to be at the right temperature. If you are making something like white macarons like these, a good way to protect your color is to put an empty baking sheet on the top rack of your oven. That's going to keep them really nice and white. So you can do that as well. It's going to prevent any color from happening. And will we be making the filling today? Today, I'm actually just using like a standard buttercream filling. But you can make your own filling, but no, we are not making our own filling, but we are decorating the macarons with Halloween shapes and things like that. And these are going to bake for about, depending on the size, if they're really small, they're going to be more toward 8 minutes. If they're a little bit bigger, they might take 12. And I'm going to show you how to know when they're ready, because that's also one of the trickier things when it comes to macarons. So while we wait for those, I have some that are ready. And Mary, is convection or regular oven better? Convection is great. I love convection. The issue with convection when you're dealing with something light like macarons is it's like a wind tunnel, and it could sort of skew your macarons a little bit. So just standard, without convection is fine when you're making macarons, just to err on the side of caution. And I do have some that I made earlier. And again, I will show you those ones that are in the oven later as they come out. Can you double the recipe or better do one at a time? You can double it, but keep in mind, I'm only baking one sheet at a time. You can bake 2 at a time, but you may find that your lower sheet tray gets a little darker on the bottoms than your top. You might have issues. So if you are doubling and doing 4 sheet trays, you're just going to have to wait. It's going to, the baking time is going to take time, but I've done up to 10 times this recipe in a really big mixer in my bakery life, and it was totally fine. So you can amp this up as much as you want. All right, so I made some earlier that were black because I thought that was fun for Halloween. If you are making black macarons, I definitely recommend making them chocolate, because if you want to get a black color just with vanilla macarons, it takes so much color to get black. So by adding a little bit of cocoa powder, I take about a tablespoon or 2 of the almond flour out of the recipe and replace that with cocoa. It just gives your color a little bit of a head start. So that could be really helpful and better for your mouth. You're not going to get like a really black mouth when you're eating these. So definitely do that. And I also have some other colors like purple, white. I am using just a regular buttercream to fill these. And to decorate them, I have some fun things for decorating. And this is some fun stuff for Michael's. I've got candy eyes. We'll do some of that. I've got the Sweet Tooth Fairy, Halloween sprinkle mix, which is so cute. So I'll show you how to roll your macarons in sprinkles. And I've also got a little bit of royal icing. We'll talk about that in a minute. And an edible marker. So these cookies, they're a little hard for kids to make, but they're really fun for kids to decorate. I have a 4-year-old, so this is like a perfect project for her. But, depending on what you've got going on at home, if you've got grandkids, if you have kids, they can have a lot of fun. So depending on what you want to do with these, so like a really simple, I could just do like a fun jack-o'-lantern. Would be very cute. Make some eyes. This is like my most simple situation. And it is easier to decorate these. I don't know what I turned this into, but it is easier to decorate these before you fill. Once you fill, it's a little bit harder because they're just a little bit harder to handle. But you can do that as well. So we'll decorate some, we'll fill some. Now, if I wanted to do a sprinkle coating, now, depending on how you like to fill your macarons, I've got a little bit of a star tip, and I just fill it all the way. You could also do something like this. where you kind of just make stars going all the way around. That could be really cute as well, and you get a little bit more height. You can fill your center with something like jam. You can use caramel, you can use chocolate ganache. You can make a white chocolate pumpkin ganache. You can have as much fun as you want with these. If I was coating in sprinkles, and if you are baking along with me, after we decorate some of these, the ones in the oven should be ready. So we will talk about the pied, the foot, how to know when they're ready, and all that good stuff after. So we're sort of going backwards a little bit. But once I fill with buttercream, I could just take these and kind of roll them in sprinkles. And that could be really cute as well. Just like a little sprinkle coating. Just so cute. Now, royal icing. How long should our shells cool for? You want them to be completely cool before you fill. So definitely wait until they are completely cool. If they're a little bit warm, they're going to melt your buttercream or anything that you're working with. Recipe for the filling. Actually, I don't think I included the recipe for the buttercream, but typically I would say, oh, I don't want to lie to you and tell you the wrong thing, but about a stick of butter, about 8 ounces of cream cheese. I made a cream cheese filling, to about 4 cups of powdered sugar. And I think the recipe is in one of the other classes. Oh, I have to look. But any standard buttercream, any cream cheese filling, any caramel, any chocolate ganache, any recipe that you find that you love, you could definitely use for macarons, including store-bought options in a pinch. You could definitely do that as well, no judgments. You've gone through all the trouble of making the shells. If you need to use store-bought frosting, you could do that also. Before my icing, if I was going to make some mummies and things like that, so I just took confectioner's sugar and just mixed it with either water or milk just until it was at a pipeable consistency. You could add a pinch of salt, you could add some vanilla to it, you could add coloring. And then all you want to do is like make some fun mummies. You can see I'm just piping lines. We'll glue on some eyes. We'll do some spider webs. I feel like candy eyes take everything up a notch. So you could just kind of like have fun. That's a really simple one. If I wanted to do a spider web, take one of my shells. And you always want to lift when you're piping and just let the royal icing fall away from you. I'll do it over on this one so you guys can see a little closer. So I'm just letting it fall on its own as I drag. Lift your lungs. You can add the fun spiders to these. You can add glitter powder. I love a little luster. I feel like that's always nice. What else can we do? We could do so many things. Any questions as I do this? Any questions? Anyone who's making these? Any questions? Got about 5 more minutes till the ones in the oven are ready. Here I've got a little Frankenstein. So cute. And this is with my edible marker. I just did some little hair. I did a little design. He's super fun. And you can even take some other colors like this. I've got the same royal icing, but in orange, purple. I'm cutting really small holes in my piping bag. The finer the hole, the better it's going to look. I'm just going to take it and I'm just going to do some lines going across. Really simple, like that. My other color. I could add some of my sprinkles. And just like a cute, fun. Can you please repeat how you made the icing? The royal icing? Just confectioner's sugar and either water or milk until you can, it's like a spreadable, pipeable consistency. If it's too loose, add a little bit more powdered sugar. If it's too thick, add a little bit more water or milk. And that's it. It's like super simple. And this is great for piping all sorts of designs and things like that. All right, let's check our oven. Let's see where they're at. So the fun thing about macarons, if you're baking yours, if you see that as they bake, they're going to puff up like this. So they start flat, and as they bake, they're going to rise, rise, rise. And at one point, they're going to look very high. As they start to come down, that's when you know you're almost ready. So just wait for them to sort of start to deflate back down. And that's when we really want to keep an eye on them. So somewhere around that 8-minute mark, you really want to be checking. You don't want to constantly open and close your oven with macarons. You do want to give them the proper amount of time without opening up and letting cold air in. That could cause them to crack. But you do want to be vigilant. Overbaked macarons are just very crunchy and just not as delicious. Add some more to my little guy. He's so cute. What do you guys think? What other desserts are you making for Halloween? What are your faves? I'm gonna make a funky monster. I painted a little smile. I'm gonna add a little dot of frosting, my royal. And just add a big eye right in the middle. He's kind of fun. He's cute, but this is fun for kids, for sure. Even though they're sort of a fancy cookie, they could still be really fun for kids. Another trick when you're filling is to kind of line them up. I've got my bottoms, I've got my tops, I line up like sizes. And then you could fill a whole bunch in one shot. I'll even do some where I'll add some jam to the middle. See, I'm gonna make a ring just around the edge. Leave my center empty. And you can add caramel, you can add jam, lemon curd, anything you want, just right in the center. And that ring of frosting is going to keep it from oozing out the side. You got a cute little sandwich. All right. Wow. Don't drop the macarons. Okay. Let's see how they're doing. So I'm just going to give you a peek. I think they need one more minute, but let's take a look at where we're at. So you can see they're at the point, if I give them a little bit of a jiggle, they still move a little bit. They're a little bit wet in the center. If that's the case, if you've got a real jiggle going on, give it another minute. Get them back in as quickly as you can. We're going to give them 1 minute. We're going to pull them out. So I'm going to move these out of the way. Put this here so we won't burn our cutting board. And you do want to grab something like an offset spatula if you have one, like a small one like this. It's really good for checking macarons and seeing when they're done. If not, any sort of something that you can go under it with, even a fish spatula, any sort of spatula can definitely be helpful. Give it 5 seconds. Okay. So how do we know when macarons are ready? Now, first of all, what I'm looking at, if you could see this here, I'm going to bring this low, just so you can see the side a little one, actually. I'm going to take you out. We're going rogue. You think yours is too thick. In a way, that's good, Morgan. You want them to be thick. So can you see the little ruffle at the bottom here? Got a little ruffle at the bottom of my macaron. What that's called is the pied. So the pied, if we look at one of our cooled macarons, it's definitely easier to handle. That's the little ruffle that's at the bottom of your shell. That's also called the foot. You get this little foot, this ruffle. Now we want that. If you've done a good job, your shell should be really shiny and smooth, and you should have a nice little pied about half the width of your macaron. That's what you want. The other thing that you want is you want to be able to kind of lift off one of your shells. They are hot, but just with like a little swipe. It shouldn't be overly sticky or wet that it creates a mess at the bottom. If it does, get them right back in. But if yours are set and they come off clean like this, and you can feel that smooth bottom, and also how you know they're not overbaked, I should be able to press, and it's nice and soft and tender, right? It kind of deflates under the weight of my finger. That's a nicely big shell. I can let those rest just on my hot baking sheet. They're going to continue to set up nicely, and they'll be perfect for filling once they're completely cool. If they're underbaked, get them right in. If they're overbaked, if you've cooked them to the point that they're super crunchy, at that point, let them cool completely. Fill them with whatever moist, yummy filling you have. Curd, jam, buttercream is fine. Something that's got good moisture to it is best. And put them in the refrigerator overnight, and that filling is going to soften the texture of the shells, and they'll be perfectly fine. Don't think that you've ruined your batch. They may be a little bit firmer than you want, but they'll be perfectly fine. And Morgan, what should you do? What's thick? Tell me again. And Jane's making coffin brownies. My kid's been wanting to make these, but I'm no baker, and the recipes that get discouraged. You can absolutely do this. I guarantee. Just watch this one more time as you go, and you can absolutely do it. Your batter is thick. That's okay if your batter is thick. Can you pipe rounds? If you can pipe rounds, you're fine. Just give your pan a little bit of a hit to kind of settle them down before you bake, and you'll be absolutely okay. But any questions, guys? I know we're sort of like running to the end. I'm going to keep decorating some, but I know that's like not as fun to watch, me just sitting here filling macarons, but I will continue to do it. But if you have any other questions, definitely feel free. I do, before anyone leaves, I do want to tell you that there are more classes coming up in the next month. Oh, Bella, so sorry. There are classes coming up for more Halloween classes like cheesecake and things like that. Some really fun Halloween meringues. We did meringue today, but to do like a real deep dive into meringue, definitely come back and check out that class. There's some great Thanksgiving classes coming up that I'll be doing and Christmas classes as well. So definitely please sign up for those. Oh, and we got some good questions. So can you freeze them? Yes. So storage of macarons. So what I like to do for macarons, once they're filled, if you're going to eat them pretty quickly within like 3 to 5 days, I would say store them in an airtight container. You can put them between layers of parchment paper if you are doing more than one layer. Unless they're really nicely decorated, then just do one layer, of course, because you don't want to mess up that decoration. And just refrigerate them for 3 to 5 days is great. Any longer than that, definitely freeze them. They're fantastic. Right out of the freezer, they could just sit at room temperature, you know, for about 10 minutes or so and just really warm up nicely, and they'll be delicious. So that is my favorite way of freezing them. I do freeze them for up to a month or two. They are great. I just want to show you the texture as well. When adding the coloring to the egg whites, does it affect this? Because see it all. So I did use gel food coloring for that reason. So if you are working with gel, that's the best bet. Something like the Satin Ice, it comes with all different colors. You can change, you could add a little bit, you know, of red to your purple. You could add a little bit of yellow to your blue, you know, and edit the color as you need to. But gel coloring is going to give you the most vibrant color without thinning the consistency of macarons, which particularly for macarons is very important. So I would say avoid liquid food coloring if you can. If that's all you have, then that's fine. You could definitely use it. Just be mindful about how much you're adding. Mini egg whites. So this is why I sort of recommended a scale, only because depending on the size of your eggs, I use large eggs. For me, 4 ounces of egg whites comes out to 3 large egg whites. And that's most likely the case for you as well. But if you're using medium eggs or extra large eggs, it does help to use your kitchen scale just to make sure that your egg white quantity is exact. Let's see, I joined late. Can you give how many eggs along with them? Yes, you should have the recipe. I think if you scroll up in the chat, I have it memorized in ounces, but I don't know if that's going to help you or not help you. But it's 4 ounces of egg whites, 3.5 ounces of sugar, 4 ounces of almond flour, and 7 ounces of confectioner sugar. How many months? I would say 1 to 2 months for freezing is great. I wouldn't go much longer than that. I think they'll start to degrade in quality at that point, but definitely. So we let them sit for 30 minutes. You can bake them right away, like I did. I threw these in right away. I did let this tray sit just as an experiment, just to see if there's a difference by letting them rest. And at this point, you could see they've developed that skin that we talked about. You see, if I press them, I'm not getting any moist batter on my finger. Call that a skin. That's when they set. You can try that as an experiment and see if that helps you, but you can also just bake them right away. And that would be fine. And just to show you like the nice consistency of a filled macaron. So I filled this with buttercream and the center of jam. You could see the outside shell, the exterior is like very crisp and delicate, almost like an eggshell, very thin. But the interior should be like really soft and chewy and moist. That's what you want when you make macarons. You want that sort of like dichotomy of the two textures going on. That's what we want. Thank you so much, Bella. Jane is Bella. Thank you so much, Bella. Thank you so much, guys. Anyone who joined me today, thank you so much. Definitely, if you make these, I would love to see your photos. Definitely post them on Instagram. You can tag Learn It with Michaels. My name is Katie Rosenhouse. You tag me as well. I'm on Instagram too. But thank you guys so much for joining me. I'll keep decorating as you file out. But thank you so much. Happy baking.